Check, Debbie or Brenda, you hear me okay?
I hear you, Mike. Good evening. We want to welcome everybody to this Arlington Public Schools Board of Directors regular meeting. It's 6:02. I want to call this meeting to order. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to acknowledge people both in person and on Zoom. We ask for your cooperation and support as we work together to have a productive in-person board meeting. Asa, can you hear me? Mike Ray, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
We're having some technical difficulties with the audio in person. Okay, forward. I want to remind everyone in attendance that face coverings are required according to the Open Public Meeting Act for everyone here in the BPAC. So if this requirement is not followed, I will provide 2 reminders. If the reminders are not successful, I will ask that the meeting room be cleared entirely with everyone exiting outside the main BPAC front doors. All people not responsible for the disruption will be readmitted and the meeting will continue. If another disruption were to occur, I will stop the meeting and move it to Zoom, which would begin 60 minutes later. The goal tonight is to have a successful meeting. This is the board's business meeting where we are focused on taking action to support our mission to educate, prepare, and inspire every student to graduate and seek their full potential as lifelong learners. This meeting is being live and is recorded on the school district's YouTube channel. At this point, I'm going to pause and issue a reminder for the audience members to please be fully masked. I'm going to ask one more time for all the audience members to please put their masks on and continue wearing them for the remainder of this meeting. After two reminders have been given, I am now going to ask that the meeting room be entirely cleared with everyone exiting by the main back doors. And all people not responsible for this disruption will be readmitted and the meeting continue. Everyone, please exit the BPAC now. We want to thank everybody for their patience and their compliance. After everyone is returned to the seats, we will get started again. Next on our agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance. If I could have everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. You may be seated. Next is our roll call attendance. Will the clerk please call for attendance?
Director Ray,
Here.
Director Kelly, Director Kingman,
Here.
President Levesque,
Here.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Advisor Andrich, Student Advisor Schroeder,
Here.
Superintendent Dean.
Here. Madam Clerk, will you please note that Director Kelly is excused? Next up, we have our approval of the agenda. We do need to make a change to the agenda. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda.
Second.
Director Knapp has motioned to amend the consent agenda. This is to remove item G, overnight field trip for the boys basketball. It will not be needed. And can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Oh, we should probably vote on the amendment, correct? Yes.
Director Ray,
Aye. Unfortunately, they don't need it.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp,
Aye.
The agenda has been amended. Do I have a motion to approve it as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Can we take a vote to approve the amended agenda?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Next up, approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the regular meeting minutes from February 4th, 2022? Can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can we take a vote to approve the regular Zoom meeting minutes from February 4th?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Next group of minutes is special board meeting study session from February 22nd. Do we have a motion to approve the study session meeting minutes from 2/22/22?
I move that we approve the special board meeting study session minutes.
I'll second.
Can we call for a vote for the special study session minutes from 2/22/22?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is a very special student presentation. It's our Arlene Public Schools celebrates Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I would like to introduce Carrie Helgson, our Director of Equity and Student Wellbeing.
There you go. All right, tonight we bring you a video that highlights different parts of our Martin Luther King Jr. assemblies in our schools. The assemblies were also well put together, touched on parts of Martin Luther King's life, but also other influential leaders of the civil rights movement. You will hear student voices from a few students at Post through their own I Have a Dream speeches. And after the video, we have a teacher and some students from Arlen High School here to share with you perspectives on how the assembly was received and possible next steps. I want to thank Gary Sable and students and staff for helping me put this video together.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Monday was a non-school day to honor the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, Nobel Peace Prize lecture, and letter from Birmingham jail are among the most important writings in the English language. His accomplishments are now taught to American children of all races, and his teachings are studied by scholars and students worldwide.
He is the only non-president to have a national holiday dedicated in his honor, and is the only non-president memorialized on the Great Mall in the nation's capital. He is memorialized in hundreds of statues, parks, streets, squares, churches, and other public facilities around the world as a leader whose teachings are still relevant to this day.
People of all colors joined together with Dr. King and continued his work throughout the years. Our next leader had the privilege of marching with Dr. King, and it is John Lewis. John participated in sit-ins, freedom rides, and the March to Selma with Dr. King by his side. He was known for equal rights, that they should always be remembered for making good trouble. John went on to become a congressman, serving our country in the House of Representatives from 1987 until his death in 2021. He made sure that he always encouraged others to continue the fight for civil rights, and always encouraged young children like us to do the hard work necessary for the change the country by getting into good trouble.
Our final stop on our journey is someone that was not only inspired by everyone we've met so far, but is someone that knew how to get into good trouble. Belen Woodward is the world's first crayon activist. Belen dreamed of having crayons that matched her skin color and was frustrated of always hearing people use words like the skin color and flesh-colored crayons. She knew that she had to do something, and she did. Belen is a true pioneer of the all-skin color multicolored crayons, and she created her company, More Than Peach. Belen's More Than Peach crayons feature all skin tones so that everyone feels included. Her determination, perseverance, kindness, and compassion created good trouble for the crayon industry and convinced them to follow her lead. Belen's More Than Peach crayons are the world's first multicolored crayons, and now kids like you and me can color knowing that there's a crayon that looks just like us.
We want to thank you for going on this journey with us. It's important to remember that Dr. King did not do all of this work alone, but that he was inspired by those who came before him. Many of the people we learned about today did work with Dr. King, and after he died, continued to do his work, and in doing so inspired others of all colors and genders to continue the fight for equal rights. Racism and discrimination still happen today in our world, and we have the choice to stand up for what's right. Just like Frederick, Claudette, Ruby, Dr. King, John, and Belen did so, that we can change the world. We want to encourage all of you President's Panthers to make some good trouble and help us make the world a better and safer place for everyone.
Freedom Riders were also common. Freedom Riders were groups of white and black Americans who rode in interstate buses into segregated southern United States in 1961. MLK dedicated his life's work in ending segregation and fighting for black Americans' right to vote and to have their basic civil rights. After countless of protests and setbacks, in 1964, MLK prevailed in ending segregation, and thus the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was created. After his assassination, MLK left a legacy. He left a movement that black Americans and non-black Americans are continuing to push to this day.
January 17th, 2022 marks the 39th year since Martin Luther King Jr. Day became a federal holiday. For almost 4 decades, we've been celebrating the achievements and leadership of MLK during the Civil Rights Movement. A movement that shaped the future of the black community, a movement that is still pushing forward to this day. The push forward has been non-stop and has now been joined by non-black people.
So the history behind protective hairstyles, like doing stuff like cornrows is a protective hairstyle that I really like to think about. It's actually back in the day during slavery, women would actually put like hidden like food, like little rice grains and little like, you know, little things to survive, and they would braid it into their hair because back in the fields they weren't like able to get it out there. They would also use cornrows as maps. So protective hairstyling is kind of like telling a story with your hair and expressing yourself, all while kind of maintaining the hair structure itself. For example, we have such thick hair, and so our hair doesn't grow normally. So when we like kind of braid it tight, it kind of stretches out our hair, allowing it to grow more freely. And I just love how it's kind of becoming a bigger thing. No more like relaxing our hair, putting chemicals to straighten it out. And it's more on trend to be like, this is who we are, this is what we do. Yeah, it takes hours, but it's better than kind of changing our hair to fit like a majority norm. And seeing white people do it, I'm glad they take interest in our hair, but it's kind of like, you're damaging your hair doing that. You know that, right? Yeah. Like, because like I said, our hair is pretty thick and their hair is a lot thinner than ours. So a braid that I can handle is most likely going to get you balding in like 15 seconds the minute that you put it in.
Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?
On January 17th, we have a day off for school to celebrate the life, legacy, and accomplishments of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This special holiday is the first federal holiday honoring an African American.
Dr. King recognized the power of service. He famously said, "Everyone can be great because everyone can serve." Martin Luther King Jr. Day is the only federal holiday designated as a national day of service to encourage all Americans to volunteer to improve their communities. Service is the act of helping or doing work for someone. Making time to volunteer for Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service is a great way to make your community a better place while honoring the legacy and teachings of Dr. King.
Acts of service can be big or small. It can be as big as volunteering or cleaning up in your community, or as small as helping your family. What will you do to celebrate MLK Day of Service?
I have a dream that in school, no one will judge you for being yourself. I have a dream that people will stop making fun of people that can't do the same thing as you. I have a dream that instead of kids making fun of you, they should encourage you.
The next student speech reads, I have a dream that bullying will stop, and every person will see themselves as equal to other people. No one will judge people on the color of their skin, eyes, etc. It's really what's on the inside that matters, and I hope people realize that.
I have a dream to stop most bullying, because it is sad. I've been bullied before, and it's not fun. It hurts some people. Words hurt, so I want the world to hear this. It doesn't hurt to say something nice, but it hurts people if you say mean stuff to them. It's a friendly act of kindness. It doesn't matter if you say, hey, you look amazing today. That person will feel better about themselves. But if you say, hey, nerd, you look terrible today, that would hurt them. So please stay kind to people. Words and actions hurt, so please just stay kind and work hard. It's not so hard to do. Please and thank you.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that video of the different assemblies that happened in the Arlington schools to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. And I'd like to introduce Naomi Gonzalez, Spanish teacher at Arlington High School. And she has some students that are going to share their perspectives on the assembly went and some next steps.
Good evening. As I introduced, my name is Naomi. I'm the Spanish teacher, but I'm also the advisor to the ASB Students for Diversity, which was created by the students for the students. They felt that there should be a platform for them to talk about the issues, the struggles, but also to figure out real ways for us to help in those situations and continue to work in a positive and a community-minded way. And also to have a safe place to kind of reflect and feel that they were encouraged and also well received in their truths. And so what's the main thing for me is that they speak their truths and they say what they need and how they plan to get there and move forward. And I'll introduce them all. This is Caleb, KJ, Jocelyn, and Tyler.
Moving forward, I think it's really important that we all work together because a lot of the teachers or students in the class kind of missed the point, I think. When we wanted the discussion to go further than the video, I think it got really awkward and closed in. And it is a really awkward situation to talk about because it's something like some people feel guilty for, but it's not something you should feel guilt for, it's something you should learn. So opening up is really hard to do, but it's really important for everyone to just kind of discuss it without being stressed about it. Because if everyone's stressed about it, then we're not going to move forward. We need to work hard on bringing everyone together and moving together, not segregating each other in our closed discussions.
I'm not in school half of the day, so I get at school at 11, the funny start. So when this video was shot, I didn't really see it and see the reactions from the student, but I heard a lot of positive and negative things. A lot of students in their classroom during advisory really had amazing conversations, which led up to amazing topics and discussions. I heard that there's a few teachers that almost pulled the video completely and not show it at all. And do something which I've kind of found really heartbreaking because we did work hard on it and we put our time and our thoughts on it. Another thing that I've heard from a friend of mine is that some A teacher during advisory did say the word because a student like it and they just flat out said it. And from what I know, this teacher wasn't Black Americans. It was just kind of thinking about that. As of the or like the negative part, because all I really hear like I want to focus on like getting the negative feedback, so then I know how we can change and how we can move forward. The people that were confused of what we were talking about hairstyles, which is kind of my part because I didn't really specify why we were talking about that. But it was more of to bring awareness between appreciation of a culture and appropriation, because there's a lot of people who want to be invested in learning about different cultures, which is amazing. There's a lot of people who use cultures for their own benefits without learning the history on that specific culture and like the struggle they deal with. Is something that unfortunately us minority face about all the time, is not people understanding our culture, and why it's so heartbreaking when other people just flat out kind of, I guess, take it themselves, not understand why we fight for that appreciation and appropriation part of our culture.
As my colleagues have said, there was a lot of positive and negative feedback happened. And I was there during the advisory where everyone, they showed the video. And personally, I was seeing a lot of like negative feedback that was happening during the video while it was going on, and seeing how my fellow classmates were reacting to the video. And there was like the feedback, like they were giving really negative comments, like they were being flat out disrespectful, but while talking in the video, even if the teacher was even telling them to be quiet and watch, but they consistently kept on going, and they were like just talking as if like the video was like, not important and not important to learn about. And so not only that, even during walking through like the hallways, I heard a lot of negative feedback of like, oh, Black hair is not a thing, or oh, why isn't there more about MLK? The thing is like, yes, MLK history is so important, but that's not the only thing that's about Black history. There's so much more to that. And not that, like my thinking was is that constantly through the years of learning about MLK history, I always hear like, oh my God, we're gonna talk about the same thing over again. But when we turn the topic to asking them why they feel uncomfortable and why you question yourself, there was a lot, because I feel as if they weren't very comfortable because they're not used to that like type of questioning about privilege and race.
Hello, I'm Tyler. I'm one of the speakers in the video. And honestly, I was quite terrified when I heard my voice come up in the assembly, due to knowing that I did say a lot of controversial things and that would cause a stir of emotions. But I cannot take back what I said. I said what I said, and I meant every single part of it, how I feel uncomfortable due to how Black history is being taught at the schools, how people are not willing to sit and listen, despite this is my truth and when I'm speaking. Like Jocelyn spoke out, there is more to Black history, and I believe that people were tired of hearing the same MLK story. He quote unquote ended racism. He quote unquote saved Black people. He saved everything. He did all this. But I believe that instead of into curriculums or teaching students in general, is to have a sit and like just sit down and talk. And instead of bringing up Black struggles, Black trauma, talk about Black success. So that way people can actually listen and hear the full story of Black history. And like McKJ said, there was a lot of stir surrounding the whole Black hair, what really meant, because kind of them aspect. But I said Black hair because it's part of our history. There's history, there's the civil rights movement, justice, slavery, and it really goes to play the history of our culture. Got that. So I kind of wish there was more context added on to that part. But like all the other colleagues said, there's a lot of backlash, a lot of negative, a lot of people saying that it was more towards hating white people, saying all white people are racist, just demonizing white people, but it wasn't that. It was to put accountability on your own thoughts as a human being, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're not Hispanic, literally whoever you are, to put into mind what your thoughts are when it comes to black people or not people of color. And oh my gosh, there's just so much to say. I can go on about this, but I just really think teachers, parents, friends, anyone just needs to sit down and listen when someone who's black or a person of color comes to you and talks to you. It doesn't matter where you stand on the political spectrum. It doesn't matter who you're raised by, how you were raised, who taught you. This is back in my day, we did this, but this is the present day. Back in your day, you've had many, many years to learn that we are moving forward. Is that when someone comes to talk to you, just listen, because your opinions, this does not matter, and it will not change the fact that this is how we Black people feel, and this is how we want to move forward. And this is our, if you sit and understand it, I feel like we can all move forward peacefully and respectfully and just open conversations. Because living in Arlington, I do believe that is not possible. As for there are many people, not just people of color, but all people of the LGBT community who are fearing for their life to speak out on such topics. That's all I have to say for right now.
So there are very hard conversations that they do bring up. They're very hard topics that are uncomfortable conversations. It's what we call courageous conversations, to come out and say their truths. I think what they came back with was they wanted to know how we could continue the conversation started. There was some very, very rich conversations that were going on in many of the classrooms with many of the teachers and the students, and we want to keep that momentum going. And so I think one of the big feedbacks that they had was, how do we keep this going? Because just do it on MLK Day, you know, that one day of the year, but to keep these conversations going for the students, for the community, for all of us, to continue to go with that and kind of grow with those kinds of things, it kind of we stood and where they stand, as well as myself, my teacher. Do you have questions? I don't know if you have questions.
Do any of the board members have questions?
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing who you are, your, you know, just the honesty and transparency. Because, and I do agree with you that sitting down and have conversations to listen and do more listening than talking ourselves. So I thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you for speaking your truth tonight. We're listening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Next on our agenda is the section of our meeting for public comments. We have one person signed up for public comments. Do we show our person here? I'm not going to burden you with reading the script since no one is here. We did have one person sign up, but no longer here. Next item on our consent agenda. Items on our consent agenda include our budget and enrollment reports, our personnel report, warrants, adjusted warrants, overnight trip for the HS Notch Bowl, overnight field trip for the girls basketball to Tacoma, overnight field trip for the boys basketball this last weekend, out-of-state travel for AHS flight jazz choir to Fullerton, California, an interlocal cooperation agreement for educational services to special needs children, and a declaration of surplus for 5 pupil transportation vehicles. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Moving on, our next item on the agenda is our new business, academic and student well-being update and opening schools for 21-22. I'd like to introduce Dr. Sweeting to share latest information on district operations and actions during this pandemic.
Good evening. So tonight, the academic and student well-being update and reopening schools update will be myself and Brian Lewis, Executive Director of Operations, and standing by is our district nurse if there are questions that she could answer and I cannot. Oh. Dr. Spitters for the Snohomish Health District. This was last week on the 15th. He shared that there are free KN95 masks available at the libraries. He also, and we'll see this in a moment, that the cases could drop significantly, hospitalizations continue to drop, and that the new Department of Health guidance should be available March 7th, which is as a result of the announcement from the governor of the mask mandate being uplifted now March 11th. So we'll hear more about that. You can see by this chart the significant dip in cases to go from all the way from 3,500 plus down to 290 some. So that's significant. In the district, last Friday, this was posted on our district. We had 11 positive cases between staff and students and 29 contacts. The next slide, you can see lots of asterisks. That means that there are less than 5 in all of our schools last Friday of being positive. That's awesome. And so another thing I will share there, I that the President's Elementary, the close contacts there, most of them, if not all of them, but most of them were preschoolers, and preschoolers are on different contact guidance. Now, next, I'm going to ask Brian Lewis to share about the program and how that's benefiting us.
Good evening, directors. Real quick reminder, you always are a memorandum of understanding at the February 14th board meeting that allows us to implement the state program. The other factor that we were waiting for was making sure that we had adequate staffing on hand to get it operating. Today was the day of program. The benefit of the Test to Stay program is that it allows students have an option if they were determined to be a close contact with somebody who was COVID positive to test twice within a 5-day period. And they were asymptomatic. The student who was the close contact is asymptomatic. Allows that student to take it in testing twice within a 5-day period and stay in school without being in an isolation situation. So that's a benefit to students and to their families as well. This also applies to the staff that work in our schools. The only group of students that it doesn't apply to at the point is students in a preschool program. Chris hinted at that, and there's treatment preschoolers that they're not covered under the Test to Stay program. It's only 12 students that are covered. So today we had 4 close contacts. We have scheduled for tomorrow, so that's 5 basically in the first day of operation for the program. So that's 5 quarantines or isolations that we're able to avoid. So that's the information I have for you on the Test to Stay program for today.
Thank you, Brian. So it's a, I mean, just having individuals, both staff and students, be able to stay in school stay at the workplace if they're asymptomatic. I wanted to say, I already mentioned that there's been a change in protocol coming and has been made. Originally, the mask mandate was going to be removed on the 21st of March. It's now moved to March 11th. And I already mentioned that the health revised guidance. In this revised guidance, it'll address some of the other protocol that we've been tending to, such as physical distancing and those kinds of things. Whoops, my internet is unstable, so my point went away. I don't know if you can still see it, but sorry. That's okay. That was the next slide. Now you see it? Okay. It's all right, because basically it was talking about just the guidance. We'll have it, it'll be published. Most, if not all, of what were requirements will become recommendations. And so we'll take a look at those when it's published on the 7th. One thing that we want to guard against is any harassment or intimidation as a result of either a choice of wearing a facial covering or not wearing a facial covering. People have a choice and we need to guard that. So that's important for us. So are there any questions? I'm going to stop sharing because it's going away anyway. So
Dr. Sweeting.
Yes.
So with the new health guidance, just to confirm, so school on March 11th, nobody will be required to wear facial coverings. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, is that for K-12. I mean, I haven't seen it in writing, but that's what I've heard, is that it will be March 11th. There's no requirement. And I believe originally when the announcement was made, they said no masks, but except on buses. But I believe that's now been changed, is that it won't be a requirement of masks on the buses either. So March 11th. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, the next thing on our agenda is our item B, our Hope Navigator project. This one is very exciting to hear about, also heartbreaking. We would like to introduce Carrie Helgeson, again, our Director of Equity and Student Wellbeing. Will you please share with us what the Hope Navigator project is?
Yes, you. So this is the exciting grant that we were awarded. It's an action item to approve the Hope Navigator grant of $18,750, the OSPI. So we were only one of 12 schools. I mean, some of the grant approvals were a school day, and then a couple of us had submitted a district-wide grant. So we were one of the districts that was awarded. And then can be spent on instructional materials, supplies, paid additional time for the team for product development or anything else that suits the project that we will be developing. The team consists of 5 counselors, 1 elementary, 2 middle school, and 2 high school counselors and myself. And we're going to receive training on the science of hope, which is based off the book by Chan Hellman, who is actually the trainer that we spent 2 days with. So it's the Hope Rising and how science of hope can change your life. So the idea is to develop a project that can instill hope back into our students as well as our staff. So this is a really important time with the coming out of the pandemic and how hope has been lost with so many of us. we have kicked around a few ideas so far. We've only had about 2 days of training. We'll continue with training once a month through the end of this year, and then it will continue into next year with the hope that we'll have a project ready to go to implement in the fall. And so we're still in the learning and planning stages of the project, but I'll come back to you when we have decided what the project will be and look like. So we'd appreciate your approval of this grant so that we can move forward with this work. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'm sorry, I don't know what it is yet.
It's it's a Hope Navigator project, is what it's called, and it's a grant from the OSA for us to work together to develop a project that we can bring into our schools to hope back into our students and staff. So hope has been lost, and on the right, I can see some data that I gave you on the 2019 Healthy Use results. Confirms that our specific training and an opportunity to engage in theory. So to highlight a few statistics from this survey was a little more than 50% of our 8th and 10th graders, where now our 10th and 12th graders feel very hopeful about the future, with only 57 of our 6th graders feeling hopeful. So we have about half of our students, when this survey was done 2 years ago, that really felt hopeful about their future. So thinking about that now, with them going through 2 years of the pandemic, I wish that our statistics will be quite a bit lower of not feeling hopeful about their future. So it's looking into the principles and the science of hope, and how can we teach those skills to our students.
Thank you for that explanation. Carrie, can you give us just some ideas of what you can imagine bringing to the students?
Well, it will align with some of our already curriculum. So our social emotional, it'll align with that curriculum. We're talking about what does that look like for our students that go into our summer school camp. So a lot of those students have kind of lost hope about their future. You know, they've stopped doing their work, they stopped attending school. So there are a number of hope activities that we're going to learn about the next training, about what we can do to really teach. Hope is something that we can teach our students. And the definition of hope that they're surfacing around is that hope is that tomorrow will be a better day than today, and you have the pathways to get there. So,
Any other members or even student advisors? Okay, this is Evelyn to approve the Hope Navigator project.
Can we move this to another month for discussion?
Director Kingman, do you want to move to postpone this decision until the next meeting or the meeting after that?
I think so. Yes.
Do we have a second for?
Can I stop for a sec? Is there a deadline for accepting this money, Carrie?
there is a deadline.
Okay.
Do you know when a deadline is?
It's this spring.
I think we probably need to know when the deadline is if they postpone voting on something.
I think
that-
it's in April. I don't have the exact date.
So if we possibly waited until our March 14th meeting, it might.
It would fit within that.
Do we have a second to postpone this decision until the next meeting?
I'll second that.
Okay, Director Ray has seconded the motion to postpone the decision for the Hope Navigator project on March 14th. Madam Clerk, did I go slow enough for you to write it all down? Okay, can we take a vote, please?
Yes, Director Ray,
Aye.
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp?
Aye.
Thank you. It looks like we'll hear from you at the next meeting.
So can I ask for some questions to be sent my way so that I can answer those and be prepared for the next meeting?
Can all board members please send their messages to Chris, and Chris can pass them on to Carrie? Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Carrie. Next item of our agenda is our financial highlights of our current budget, and this will be presented by Gina Zutenhorst. Good evening, Gina.
Hello, good evening, members of the board. I'm Gina Zutenhorst, Executive Director of Financial Services, here to present to you a kind of a standing item that's on our board meeting agenda whenever we have a budget on our consent agenda. So we report each month out, and so this aligns with that. So we can just give you a few of the highlights within that month where we're at with the budget. So I will move forward. All of a sudden, I can't get to this. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I will start out with sharing the positives for our district. We have some very good positives. We have a healthy fund balance to help sustain our operations. We have our 4-year educational programs and operations levy that is a real help for our financial picture. We have federal funds as well, providing some relief to our district. As others districts receive, we are receiving for our district ESSER 3 funds, $3.6 million. We have Department of Health Learn to Return grant that was new, $490,000. We also have the CARES Act emergency connectivity funds with over $750,000 worth of value of technology equipment, Chromebooks, and equipment for the teachers. We also have our capital levy. This is a real positive for our school district. We do have some challenges. So with the initial 2021-22 budget, the estimates of where we were going to come in for our ending fund balance at the end of this year was estimated to be down to our minimum reserve level by the end of the year. And our staffing levels that we maintained going into 21-22 were at our pre-COVID enrollment levels. And then we also have been infusing with additional staff as we've gone to meet student needs and accelerate student learning. Our enrollment is recovering at a slower pace than we had hoped. And we have a number of programs that have unique needs that are greater than the revenues that are being generated by their associated funding models. So for example, special education is on the list for that. And that is not unique to just this year. That is something that school districts are advocating for, that the state better support special education needs. But especially in years like we are in right now, it's especially exasperated. And then Child and Nutrition Services, that's another program that is just the uniqueness of how we're required to operate this year, and it's been great. We've been providing meals for all students with no fees, but it is a very unique, different way than we have typically operated, and the funding is not at present keeping up. So we are also continuing to experience costs associated with COVID-19, things that we would not normally have to purchase, especially the volume of personal protective equipment. And then it's important to keep our fund balance in front of our eyes and knowing what's going on with that. In the trends, this is what I've put up for you. It shows multiple years of where fund balance bounces around as we go through the year, and shows kind of what the trend is across the years. And you can see that January, we are definitely starting to show that downward trend. We're still kind of in line with where we normally would be in January, but it is a lower mark than typical. Now, I do expect that the next budget report that you'll be looking at will have a dot here in February, and it's going to be more in line with where we were 2021. And that's because our ESSER funds are going to be coming in. So that will help us, and that'll improve our fund balance picture. Our ESSER 3 spending plan, and I always just want to keep this in front of our board members and our public as well as we go about utilizing these much needed funds. The spending plan includes higher staffing and service levels, as well as new costs to enrich and accelerate student learning. So you can see the breakout of how these funds are being spent in this pie chart. The green slice, the biggest green slice right here, the 67%, that is for school building and instructional staff that is being supported with these ESSER funds. And then 15% is for school building paraeducator staff. And then this other green part, 9%, is for additional counseling staff and social emotional support. And then we have a slice here for nursing staff, and 2% of the funds, it's about 60 to 80,000 is what how we provide our summer school with, because we're providing that free of tuition for all students that are our students, whether for credit recovery or for credit advancement, no fee. And technology equipment is this 4% sliver here. Here's something else that kind of is a tool to take a look at the financial health of our district. This is adapted from a tool that OSPI put out, and they did this in connection with the Washington State Auditor's Office as a way to be able to assess financial health of school districts and have a look to see if people are trending, school districts are trending in a way where they needed to be put on financial watch. So you can see these are basic financial measures, where they're looking at fund balance, they're looking at your cash balance on hand, they're looking at expenditure to revenue ratios, and they're mapping those across the years. They're weighting those scores, and then other school, they can see for all school districts where those scores are landing us. So I have adapted this to project into 2021 and 21-22. 2021, our fiscal numbers are done, but they are unaudited, and therefore they are not part of OSPI's official published scores yet. And then I have further extrapolated to do a column for budgeted for 21-22, the year that we're currently in. And so the numbers we're using, that it still assumes that we're down to ending fund balance at the minimum reserve level. And we're holding steady. Our score is a 2.45, and the cut score, where they would consider a district to be on financial watch, is 1.7. So we're still holding steady, clear of that. And I do expect that this may improve a bit depending on where we end up with our fund balance in the future. And I am putting up our adjusted working forecast as well. This I have taken from the initial one that you looked at when the budget was first approved. It has been updated for the beginning fund balance to be the actual, where we actually started. So there's an improvement there compared to what was looked at when the budget was approved. And we also increased that revenue picture just for the fact that we have enrollment higher than what we estimated for budget purposes. So that does increase the revenue picture. And then we've made some adjustments in the out years, because that red line, need for future reduction, has decreased accordingly. So with the picture increasing or looking better for this year, we're decreasing the future need for reduction. Now, just kept that as a line item on there in red. It's not that you have to decrease $4 million some dollars every year in the future. This would just mean in a one-time decrease of 4 million, because when you do that, then it carries through the rest of the years. And I do expect the picture will change a lot between now and the next round of actual revenue estimates, as the legislature is finishing up their session in the March 7 or 10. They'll be getting out soon. I don't have that date exactly right, but it's within that week. And then we'll get more information about what they actually did and what they decreed and how that impacts us. There is some funding that we could get with regard to enrollment stabilization for schools. And that's the biggest number I think that I'm watching right now, but also depends on what the inflationary measure is that they're going to publish that could impact our future expenditures. So sorry, I'm kind of blending a little bit into talking about future budget, but this is meant to be a spark for, hey, where are we at right now? What's the picture look like? And again, this is not exact numbers because it's from budgeted and made some big high level adjustments. The overall outlook of our current budget, again, is that the advent of new revenues helps our future years. The district is carefully watching our costs and revenues and enrollment trends, looking for more positive impacts. And to remind and inform you that I'll be coming to you with a formal request for a budget extension this spring. The overall budget spending authority is going to need to be increased to align with some of the additional unbudgeted revenues that we're getting. So we did not plan or know that we would be receiving emergency connectivity funds. So while pretend we were given that money, but we didn't have the authority to spend it because we were already up to the line of what the board had approved for spending authority. So I'll be coming back to you to just make sure that we have enough in our total budget appropriation to be able to actually spend the funds that we're being given. And another one of those is the Learn to Return grant that we have been given from the Health Department. And so those are some of the examples of why we're going to need to request a budget extension. In addition to that, we'll be asking to increase our capital projects fund budget spending appropriation and our transportation vehicle fund as well. And that's just to make sure that we're able to spend the funds that we have available to us in those funds. And so I'll be bringing those to you at the March 14 board meeting. For the general fund, I do want to mention GASB 87. It's a really exciting acronym, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, number 87. And it's for accounting for leases. And it is creating quite a lot of work for school districts to implement this standard. And I really have to say, unfortunately, I don't believe it adds a lot of value to our financial statements. Nevertheless, we will be compliant. And I think I'm not the only school district that's going to need to do a budget extension because of the book entries that we will have to do for leases. So just a heads up, I don't have the number yet, but I will be trying to encompass that within our budget extension. And I believe that that is all I have for you today. And I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Hi, Gina, it's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, remind me, and I know for some of our newer board members, when are we going to see some of the suggestions for that, couple of percentage reduction potentially for the upcoming budget year?
We're still too early to be able to have numbers, but pretty soon I'll be bringing monthly budget updates. Not only will I be talking about, here's the picture for today within this month, highlights of right now, but I'll be bringing budget updates for how we're coming along with developing next year's budget. And so I'll be bringing some information, but it won't be good hard numbers for a bit yet. And once the legislature gets done, the state still needs another 4 weeks at least to program the tool for telling us how much revenue does that actually translate to if we put in our enrollment and they run all their stuff. So it will be a while before I can give good hard numbers on the revenue side. And then the expenditure side does take a while as well to compile. So it's going to be a while yet. But when I get a timeline estimate, I'll be starting to report out more on that.
Great, thanks, Gina.
Yeah.
Gina, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you go back to the slide that showed the regionalization factor? And I was curious, obviously our revenues are dipping down a little bit that next year, 2020, our expenditures are not dipping down. And I was kind of curious can you explain a little bit more about the regionalization factor and how much that impacts our revenues? And then can you also talk about the budgeted enrollment that you've got on those slides and what kind of formula or used for that? Because we are going to be discussing enrollment night and how that plays into our budget. And I just really want to understand when we figure out what our enrollment is, that impacts our budget.
Right. So when you approve the budget for the, when you approve enrollment, you will be approving for the 22, 23 year.
Gina, you're breaking up quite a bit. I don't know if anyone else can hear that, but here in the audience, the audio is a little bit glitchy. I think that's what my call it. So if you just talk really slowly, I'd really appreciate it.
I will see if I can turn my camera off. That might help.
I think it's their end, Gina, because you're crystal clear remotely from me.
Okay.
Just FYI.
I will try to speak slowly, and or we will be discussing these matters a lot more in the coming months as well. But the question first was to talk about regionalization factor. And this is declining each year by 1%. And the regionalization factor is something that was set by the legislature. And it was something that came along with the McCleary decision. So that rather than funding being paid based on staff mix, it is funding, which is years of experience of teachers and levels of education, so that the funding that they gave was aligned somewhat with each district's unique makeup of the number of years of experience of their teachers and the experience of their teachers. So instead of that, they went to an average of what they gave each school district, and layered on top of that was a regionalization factor, which is supposed to go along with the level of cost of living, sort of kind of property value, sort of kind of in a school district's region. So for Arlington, we are given that our factor, and then it is supposed to be on the decline 1% each year. They are supposed to be rebasing that or rediscussing that or realigning that, but they have not given out information on that I report to you on. It's nothing that we could take action on. And some school districts receive an additional 4% on top of that regionalization factor because they have an exceptionally high level of staff with years of experience and degree levels. So we, Arlington, must have been right on the bubble when those 4% were being handed out to school districts because we have a very high level of staff education and years of experience. So anyway, that is a little bit about the regionalization factor. And I'm sure that there is more to be shared, but I'm not sure if right now is probably the best time for me to do it. Maybe I can wrap some more of that into future presentations.
Okay.
Especially if you can't hear me very well.
There's some challenges.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions for Gina? All right, thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Brian Lewis to talk about the adoption of the 2022-2023 student enrollment projection. Good evening, Brian. Please share the student enrollment information with us.
Coming right up. Evening. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all the slides that I went through last time. They are the same, they're not changed. Start with the summary of the different enrollment estimates compared to our projected annual average FTE for this year. With the low range April roll, we're anticipating growth of 100 students across the grade spans. And again, this includes grades C through 12 plus Running Start plus any of our ALE programs. The medium at the weight average, expecting an increase of 255 students across the grades and then with the high, the cohort survival, OSPI cohort survival would be 330 more students across all grades. And again, realization is the 2023 weighted average projection. The next slide just shows that by grade level, show you the weighted average comparison or weighted average method comparison of 22-23 estimated annual FTE to the 21-22 budget. We'll start off with elementary schools, expecting an increase of about 14 students. At Pioneer, another increase of 17. At Eagle Creek, an increase of 21 students, and at Kent Prairie, 4 students. So fairly stable from our prediction from last and reflecting a continued pattern of growth, albeit small, that we would see. For middle schools, there's a little the change here between Post and Howler, more weight of the middle school load shifting onto Post. We're looking at 44 student growth at Post and then a decrease at Howler of about 16. Again, this is compared to this is reflective of growth that has occurred at the schools, the elementary schools at Eagle Creek and Kent Prairie that feed into Post, President, and Pioneer, growing not as much as Kent Prairie or Eagle Creek. At the high school level, I'll decrease at Arlington School. We see a large class exit and not as big of a class coming in to replace it. This will reverse in a few years as we get some larger classes at the elementary schools as they make their way through the middle schools into the Everton, we're projecting we'll hold steady at 105 FTE, so no change there. And then a small change at Open Doors, adding about 17 students at Open Doors. SVLC, we are expecting an increase from budget, but it's still stable at comparison to where we're actually at for this year. And then you asked at the last meeting to show a comparison of budget versus actual. So went back to 17-18 and then forward from there to the current year. We've been on the plus side, about 5%. Actual 5% was greater than budget. In 17-18 and 18-19, we were 1% greater at 19-20, 1% again. 2021, 8% lower than budget. And my colleagues reminded me that we adopted the budget enrollment in February of 2020, a month prior to shutting down due to pandemic in March of 2020. And we did not make adjustments to the annual budget for the enrollment budget for FTE. At that time, we had no idea where we're going, and that we'd end up in a high operation for 2021. So that explains that difference. And then this year, we're looking at a plus 3.75%. So the goal, my goal, personal, is to keep it at 2%, because stations one way or the other either has an effect on fund balance, or we're scrambling to find more teachers after it started, which is, it's not necessarily the best situation to have to rearrange classes and add a teacher. We'll start, so we try to avoid that from happening, but it does happen. Okay, so that's the extent of my presentation for tonight. We're just asking you to adopt the budget enrollment that's shown here in the medium, the 22-23 weighted average method.
I don't hear any questions. Director Ray, do you have any questions?
No questions for me.
All right, thank you, Brian. This is an action item. Brian Lewis has presented the enrollment projection. Do we have a motion to adopt the student enrollment projection as presented? I think the total figure was 5500, a round even number, 5,500. Is that correct, Ryan?
That's
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we accept the 2022-2023 enrollment estimate at 5,500 students.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the 2022-23 student enrollment projection. Madam Clerk, can you please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director.
Aye.
Okay, you've got your number, Brian.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is our CTE course revisions, and we will hear next from the other Brian, Brian Long, Director of College and Career Readiness. Good evening, Brian. Please let us know what courses are being revised.
Let me see if I can get this to work first, and then we'll go from there. It's counting. There we go. And there it is. All right, so our new revisions for the 22-23 school year, they're pretty straightforward. So for our metal manufacturing class, we actually just, oh, this is not going to be good. Oh yeah, that's going to be super confusing. So I'll just explain it. So we are changing our zip code from 47000 to 48000, which seems super nitpicky. It's literally a 1-digit difference. But 4800 allows for Mike Gudgeon to teach class and receive funding from OSI, 4700. And so he has a specific vocational code he can teach under, and the 4800 is almost identical description, is offers that B code, whereas the 4700 does not. So that is the entire change for metal manufacturing. It is literally 1 digit. So the next ones are just name changes entirely. And I think I can move these around so you can see what I'm doing. All righty, so we are changing metal manufacturing 2 to metal manufacturing 2 fabrication. The name is literally the singular change is the word fabrication. The point being is that we can then put in the course guide the students exactly where it falls into a sequence of 2 courses, which is exceptionally important in the process of creating pathways so that students can graduate in manufacturing. The same thing is true in the wood tech situation. We have Wood Tech 1 is just called Wood Tech 1, but now we're going to have 2 of them. So we need to distinguish the 2 names. Wood 1 Cabinetry, which is our traditional class that we currently have. And then our construction class, which if you remember from last time I presented, we took construction geometry and put it into 2 classes. And the construction class portion of that, we want to make sure that it's wood construction. So we changed the framework before and now we're just in the name. So those are the 3 there. And then if I can get these shown. So metal manufacturing 1 can feed and blow into metal manufacturing 2 full tech is approved last time, or metal manufacturing fabrication. And then our wood tech, I think I broke it. Our other one is just simply wood tech 1, which is construction, or wood tech 1 cabinetry, which can flow into wood tech 2. So that one's a little bit different. We have more students that take that first level course that feed into the second level course. But the manufacturing class, we have many kids want to take welding, but split into the 2 different categories. So one is more broad to start with to see their interest, and then it narrows to really focus on those secondary skills. So a little bit different in terms of the different types of vocation that you're going into. And that's that one. Questions?
Any questions about the digits and names?
It's literally just a word.
All right, we have a motion to approve the CTE course revisions.
I'll motion to approve the CTE course revisions.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the CTE course revisions. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you, Brian. Up next is also Brian for an agreement for inter-district cooperative educational services 22-23 school year. Will you please share?
That title slides right off the tongue, right? So this is exactly, it's identical literally to the SMILE program that we already have in place. It's just a different direction. This one's in Mount Vernon, SMILE is down in Mukilteo, and the only significant difference, and the only one we're even considering it, is these 2 courses in particular. So we really don't want our students guided between 2 programs at all. So this would really only be for these 2 programs that are not offered at SMILE, and it's the fire science and EMT program. We have just a couple kids who are really interested in that. And all we got to do is sign a piece of paper, get them that opportunity. Why not do it? So I think we have 3 for sure that are like really go, and then a 4th one that's kind of on the online. But all the rest of these Northwest career and technical academic programs are available at SMILE, and we use those. We have C+ kids every year. So this one would not offer transportation. Those 3 to 4 kids that we're looking at already have the ability to get themselves there. And most of our kids actually at Snow Isle are already transporting themselves. And this would only, these 2 are really what we're looking for, unless the other ones are filled and available at Snow Isle. We want to make sure we honor that Snow Isle agreement first before we go towards this one.
What's the length of this agreement? Is this for?
This is just a 1-year one. We'd have to just, because it's not really part of our consortium. This is outside of, which it's not like Snow Isle, where I think that's a 3 or a 4-year one. This one's just year to year to year, and it's literally just so that we can share data and they can claim our students when they're there. So
Brian, this is basically the Skagit County equivalent for Snow Isle Skills Tech Center.
Yep. And they just have these 2 programs, the drone, ROV automation, and the fire science that aren't available at Mukilteo.
And does this impact?
3. Maybe a 4th one if he gets his act together and gets his paper done. So there's always paperwork.
Maybe
Any
we can,
further questions?
I was hoping maybe we can encourage more because this is a fantastic program. The instructors up there are top notch.
It's a solid program all around. The whole Snow Isle and just the career centers throughout the state of Washington are just they're spectacular. Honestly, I just wish we could send more. Don't really the FTEs, the instruction and the direction and the kind of passion that these folks generate in these kids is just something impressive, plain and simple. So.
And Brian, it's about each student, because of whether it's 1,000. Thank you.
And if it's just a matter of paperwork, let's do some paperwork.
Any further questions, Ryan? Do our student advisors have any questions about this awesome program? This is another action item. A motion to approve the agreement for Interdistrict Cooperative Educational Services 22-23 school year.
I can move that we approve the agreement for the Interdistrict Cooperative Education Services for 2022-2023.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote on this one?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Beck,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
All right, go sign them up, Brian. Next up, we have Brian Lewis. And that's for our SAC resurfacing proposal revised. So Brian, please explain the current revisions you're proposing for track surfacing project that was approved at our last meeting.
Excuse me. So at our last meeting, at your last meeting, I asked for approval for a contract to surface the Arlington High School track. And you approved it. And the contract that we presented at the time was with was a 3-party contract between ourselves, KCDA, as KCDA handles the bidding on these kinds of just as and paying on surfaces. When we return the signed contract to the vendor, they said, oh, no. This really should be a contract assigned to another entity, a business entity by the name of Field Turf USA Incorporated. Bainon is a subsidiary of Field Turf USA. KDA has a business relationship with Field Turf USA in the same way that they have a business relationship with Bainon. So it really is a change in the name of the entity, and I'll show you that new contract. So this is the new contract, and you can see the vendor name now is listed as Field Turf USA Incorporated. And the amount of the contract, 579,135, is the same. And it's for alternate bid for the Surface 300 series with no color, just has the markings, the line markings embedded. So it's the same product, the same specifications as we presented to you last time. So it's an unfortunate error on the part of Banon and Field Turf that they did not recognize until after we returned the contract to them, and they asked to change, and that's what we're bringing to you tonight.
Any questions for Brian Lewis? All right, this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve AHS servicing proposal revised?
I'll make a motion to approve the AHS track surfacing proposal revised.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the track resurfacing proposal. Are we ready to take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp,
Aye.
Thank you. The motion is approved and the revised is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dave McKellar to talk about our first reading of Board Policy 3411, Emergency Seizure Medication. Evening.
Good evening, President Levesque and directors. Dave McKellar, Director of Special Education. Health Services is part of my folio, as you were. This is policy 3411. It's model policy changes from WASDA have come through. And as you'll see, it's pretty much gutted. The last review was in 2018. Things have changed a little bit. We just pretty much adopted the model policy language from WASDA. A lot of the last sections under the A through H, you'll see have to do with parent designated adult. I think it's just covering, especially for buildings that do not have school nurses, things like that. You'll also see like required notification of EMS is the last lined out item. This is more of a procedure do have in our procedures that we don't wait till after we administer to call 911. We do it for and maybe at the same time, but
Hey,
this is
Dave,
a
is it
first-
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Dave, is this a good time to field the question?
Sure.
So functionally, we're already doing this, correct? Like,
correct.
And so the revised policy, are there any significant changes to this in either some, staffing skills or, any financial impact, anything that you can see that I was reading through it, it didn't, nothing jumped out at me.
No, it's really, it's just bringing more clarity to the policy. Of course, the title has been changed. It's more about, instead of about the medication, it's more about accommodating students with these types of disorders. It's always been or out there that like parent designated, a parent designated adult. It's been out there. We just utilized it or how need to utilize it, but there we'd follow it if a parent wanted to go down that course. But nothing else, nothing really jumped as being a major change.
Great, thank you, Dave.
President Levesque.
All right, this is first reading, so if you wanted to discuss any amendments or any concerns, this is an appropriate time to discuss that.
And between now and the next board meeting, if board members want to read and then have questions, send them my way, and I'll have Dave take a look at those.
Thank you, Dave McKellar. Next up on our agenda is our second reading and adoption of Board Policy 30-20, Freedom of Expression. This will be presented by Carrie Henderson Burke, our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. Carrie, please share with us about the revisions that have been made.
Thank you, President Levesque. Small wordings to this one about student freedom of expression in student written publications. You can see word cause is crossed out, and a bit more verbiage about inciting, speaking a little bit more specifically to the intent of the writing, inciting others to dangerous actions that might disrupt or endanger others, rather than simply causing, which is a little bit more of a passive action.
Do any board members have any amendments that they'd like to propose or any discussion about this policy? It's an action item. Can I motion to please approve Board Policy 3220, Freedom of Expression?
Make a motion to approve policy 3220, freedom of.
I can second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve Board Policy 3220, Freedom of Expression. Clerk, we are ready for the vote.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp,
Aye.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Next up is informational items. And first up, we're going to have our superintendent's report. Dr. Sweeting.
Thank you. We are getting ready, our Director of Communication, Gary Sable, to send to the printers our next Our Schools publication. And in the Our Schools publication, it will focus on the state of the district. So it will highlight the progress we've made this year towards the 4 goals in the strategic plan. So that'll be in homes, all homes in the 823 code in the next probably 2 weeks or so. And then I wanted to say that at the last week, we did manage to talk about progress towards goals 1 and 2. Did not get to goal 3 and 4. We're going to do that at the March 21st first study session. So we'll look forward to that. And then, as you can see, there's something magical going to happen here this weekend. So Shrek is Friday, and it'll be Friday and Saturday. I will be here on Saturday, excuse me, with my family enjoying the production, and it's again next weekend. So please, at one point the tickets were sold out, but we managed to relook at qualifications for co-curricular and curricular performances, and we're able to increase tickets because they sold out quickly. So I'm not sure the status today, but if you would like to go, please check the website, the Burn Performing Arts Center, and it's going to be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. And normally we would have a later update. Director Kelly is absent, so we're going to skip to our comments from board members. I'd like to start with the students. Kyle, do you have anything you'd like to share with us tonight?
Sorry, but right now, nothing new with me.
Go on. Right. Maddie.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank all the community members that came last meeting and this board meeting. I really appreciate it. And I think it just helps us as a community in the board just to continue serving our community and school district as best as possible. Last weekend, I went to WU for a Top Scholars invite only event. It was very amazing and just kind of clarified my district there again. And I will be attending their honors program as well. And then applying for the 7-year undergraduate and vet program there as well. So yeah, this little update with me. Thank you.
Thanks. Really excited to see what you do. Next up, any board members like to share anything?
I'm just excited for the next board meeting in person to see everybody's faces.
Congratulations, Maddie. That's so awesome. I think some of my favorite things being in person now is, at our meeting, we heard from students about back. And then tonight, hearing from the ASB Diversity Club, and I just love hearing from the students. And I really appreciate them and their bravery. And the theme from the Diversity Club that I picked up was to move forward. And that's something that I'm going to try to keep focus on, as well as keep moving forward and keeping up these conversations every meeting. So really appreciative.
Thank you, Director Kingman.
Not bad, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to wrap up the meeting to close the board comment section. I want to say that I am also looking forward to going in person to see the musical. I've got tickets for the last day and I'm super excited. I'm really excited to see the kids shine, and it's really inspirational to hear from the students and to see them in and doing what they are really good at. And I'm real excited about that. I was also moved by hearing from our students tonight, hear from in the future. It's really important that we get to hear their voices. I get to go to a Student Voices event at Post Middle School, and I really enjoyed hearing from the students. They were very brave and courageous from their heart. We know that it's challenging right now in schools and in the world, and I would appreciate hearing some of their ideas and suggestions for improvement. I know that we can make improvements and make things better. One of the things that was shared in Martin Luther King Jr. Assembly recap was a quote from John in Good Trouble and making the world a better place. And I just hope that we can all get behind that 100% and make the world a better place. No matter what we do or we're at, that we can all work together to make things better for the students. So I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who stuck with it tonight, for your patience. Our next meeting will be held on Monday, March 14th at 6:00 p.m. right here at the Burning Arts Center. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Can we take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good night.